Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining Sandra P's Gen Extra. Good morning. I hope everyone is doing great. And as you can see, we are here for our Real Housewives Salt Lake City. This is one of the really good franchises. This is one of the newer franchises, even though it's season 6. I still think of it as one of the newer franchises. And I'm here for Mary, just like everybody is here for Mary Cosby. She's the only one I really identify with on the cast, but I like most of the cast. This is my first time reviewing this show. Well, of course, this is my first time reviewing any of the shows, but this is a show that I would just kind of watch, but not really think too much about whether or not I was going to review it. But I do like the show. I think it's going to be pretty good. I'll do something a little different with this. It's a recap. It's also opinion. But with these ladies, there are so many of them. I think Brittany is the one that is friend of. And I'll just see how I'll do that. I'll do kind of the scenes. It may not be scene by scene, but I'll point out anything that's important. And then welcome in. As you come in, please click the like button. If you are not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. Sandra P's Gen Extra, you're going to see a lot of my recaps, my reviews, my opinions. The extras will be either on the shows, or I also do some political commentary. And then, of course, Sandra P is free to move about the cabin. That's my travel series. That's where I take the subscribers with me when I go on vacation, or I happen to be in a city, or I'm doing something that might be kind of interesting to you, or you just want to hang out. But we'll start with Real Housewives Salt Lake City. This is season 6. It is episode 1. It's Hotdgs and Hearsay. So we've got Angie and Mary get to host a trip. This is kind of unusual. Usually the other franchises, they kind of build up to a trip, but this cast had a tough reunion. They had a 3-part reunion. They all got into it. Everybody was called out for something or another. And we see a scene where Heather Gay, she's the one that wrote the book Bad Mormon. She usually does a lot of the narrating, also Meredith Marks. But Heather is telling us there's 5 different disputes going on amongst the ladies, y'all. So they kind of had a tough reunion. And the reunion does have the potential to leave the cast fractured, especially as they start watching the show again and kind of rehashing different things that happened. So a lot of that's going to come up during this first episode. I think it is interesting that they get a trip first episode, just right out the gate. But I like they're doing that because I don't know how else they would get together. So it is Angie K and Mary's trip. I don't think that Mary had a lot to do with the planning. I'm glad the two of them are doing it together because Angie tells us that Sean kind of suggested to her that she buy an RV and that she uses it. They go on family trips. They drive all around. There's a lot of beautiful country out where they are in the Salt Lake City area, and of course out west. So she does still currently RV. Mary Cosby tells us that she grew up, her mother had an RV. We know that Mary is deep in church. She has a church. She's a preacher still. So she grew up in church going around to RVs. That's part of church culture too. We knew a lady in our church that had an RV. We were able to ride in it from time to time. So it's very convenient. You get to sleep there. They can be as tricked out as a refrigerator, stove, beds, all kind of stuff, seating area. And the one that Angie shows us is pretty luxurious. Now, I couldn't figure out if it was hers or if it was one that she rented. But in any case, it was really nice. It came with a driver named Hotdgs. Angie is being funny. So she does have, I guess, a commercial vehicle license. I hope you do, Angie. Angie's driving the RV to pick up the ladies. So she picks up Mary first. Mary is funny. Mary comes out with one of her housekeepers. Mary had about 4 of the same bag, like one of these big carry-on pretty base bags. Hers was white. She had 4 of those. Now, this is like a few days trip. They're spending the night in the RV. So I don't know where Mary thought she was going to put all that luggage, but she had a ton of stuff. She was ready. And Angie it looked like she had a lot of snacks and all this kind of stuff. This will come up later, too. And, of course, she brought some tequila. So Mary and Angie pick up the ladies at a strip mall, which is where Beauty Lab that's Heather Gay's business. And as they get there, all the ladies get there, they were like, they were shocked. They were kind of looking they were like, well, what? We couldn't get anything out of Mary. Nobody could get anything out of Angie. They didn't know what they were going to do. the invitation looked like it was going to be some kind of luxurious trip. It had an airplane and it had a bikini, and just they thought they were going to a beach day or something like that, which would have been fun because the ladies live in Utah. But thankfully, they are dressed in like heavy coats and things like that. We get a confessional with Brownwyn, who is the most stylish, the most fashionable. I think she said Rihanna follows her. They follow each other. Rihanna also follows Karen Hugo going down. So that's a fun fact. I heard Andy Cohen say that. So they're looking around, you know, they're waiting on somebody to pick them up. And they couldn't believe it when they saw Angie driving. Welcome, Braylon Lee. Hello, good to see you. Yes, thank you so much. He's telling me proud. Good morning, good morning. I see you working. I'm very proud of you. Keep going. I appreciate that, Braylon Lee. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Angie thought, she thought that, well, I'm going to surprise the lady. She shows up in the RV and they couldn't believe it. Now they're kind of disappointed because these ladies are really used to luxurious things. Brittany is a trip, y'all. She opens up. Now they're all in big coats because it's Utah. It's cold. She opens up. She was like, well, it said bikini. Look, I got on a bikini. She had on a bikini, like an old timey flasher. She had a bikini on up under her coat. So I thought that was pretty funny. So as they all get into the RV starts to get surrounded. The ladies are looking out the window. They start to get nervous, like, oh my goodness, what's going on? What's going on? Y'all, there are people there that are asking for Whitney Rose. They're dressed like SWAT. I think the thing said SWAT. And this is timely. So that wasn't really funny to me. But as they get surrounded, they said, they're looking for you, Whitney. Whitney goes to the door like, I'm Whitney Rose. And they said, you know, we want to talk to you. You've been a bad girl. Of course, they start all that. It's strippers, y'all. The Mary's like, no. You know, Mary Cosby is a preacher. Angie says, they look kind of young. If they look like I could burp them, I'm kind of not interested. I'm with Angie. I'm also with Mary. Mary said, where's the muscles? So that was funny to me. Brittany says, oh, we're going to drive by my house. They all get in there ready to go. The way we're going, we're going to drive by my house. Mary jokes, why don't we just drop you off? So Brittany's saying, it's so funny when Mary's being rude. Mary Cosby has her humor and she jokes, but she's usually not playing with them. She don't really care for Brittany. She doesn't care for Brittany. The group is asking, well, where's Lisa? Lisa Barlow's not there, y'all. She was a big part of the reunion, a big part of almost all of the different fights that were going on. And this is going to come up later, even though she's not there. So production shows us a call with Angie, who's one of the trip planners, and Lisa. And she tells Lisa, okay, we're going on a trip. And she says, I'm not going. I'm not going to spend the night with Brownwyn, not even one night. She's a liar. She's this, she's that. It's called a pathological liar. And then she says, okay, and also I have a work event. So she brought up first, she didn't want to be overnight with Brownwyn. And then she said that she had a work event. So the ladies are like, I don't think it's because of work. They all start talking to each other. They don't think it's because of work. Lisa says, I'm going to be with Ben and Blake. So production shows us pictures of Ben Affleck and Blake Lively. There is something South by Southwest. Lisa Barlow is a part of that, but the group kind of didn't believe her. And then also when she mentioned to Angie why she wasn't going, she brought up Brownwyn first. So Whitney says, it's probably Brownwyn. She don't want to be in the same room with Brownwyn. And then Brown was like, well, don't blame it on me. She could be working. And then Brittany, for some reason, jumps up and says, she says, you're one to talk. Your business is all over the place now, and it's not good news. Whitney got so upset. Whitney was like, don't talk about my business. She said, you talk about what's going on with you. She says, you know nothing about my business. And what do you do for money? Are you sucking Jared's D? Y'all, they have been in the RV probably about 15 minutes. Mary said, oh my God. So they are all arguing back and forth. Heather keeps piping in. And then Brownwyn starts talking about Lisa. The fact that Lisa's not there. It's convenient that Lisa's not there. Lisa gets to talk about everybody. Lisa talked about Brownwyn like a dog at the reunion in New York. She claimed she knows so much about Brownwyn's finances. And now we find out that, Whitney brings it up. Lisa is in the news, or maybe Angie brought it up. They started discussing Lisa Barlow's business. And somebody said, well, that's just a rumor. And Brownwyn said, it's in the Salt Lake Tribune. So production helpfully puts up a Salt Lake Tribune article about Lisa Barlow and her businesses. Evidently, allegedly, and in my opinion, let me put up a banner. Allegedly, and in my opinion, y'all, there's supposed to be something like 5 different lawsuits against Lisa Barlow and or her business. So this is what the ladies are discussing. Heather says, well, don't kick a one-legged dog when they're down, whatever that means. So the driver gets kind of either distracted or nervous. I don't know, but he chooses that moment to swerve, and they're in an RV. So a big movement like that, the refrigerator pops open, drinks are all over the place. The ladies are still kind of getting into it. So everybody was still discussing Lisa's case. Meredith did end up saying, I don't think we should discuss her when she's not here. Mary says, well, y'all discuss me when I'm not there, which is true. And then either Heather or Lisa said, well, how would it feel? Do you know how it feels to have all your friends talk about you on a trip and you're not there? Mary says again, I know what that feels like because I've been on the trip. I was there. I went to bed and you all talked about me. So thank you, Mary, for holding their feet to the fire. This is true. So Heather's like, and Brown, when you're one to talk, you got caught in a huge lie over the necklace. The $4 million necklace came up. Production helpfully shows us. Andy Cohen said, I thought you'd wear that necklace today. Evidently, Brown said that she had purchased from a jeweler a $4 million necklace. And Lisa Barlow was in communication with the jeweler and trying to find out whether or not it was a real purchase. So I don't appreciate that. That's really none of her business. I don't like when people do stuff like that, but that is the type of stuff that Lisa does. And not that they should be talking about her behind her back, but she does talk about everybody behind their back. And then Angie pulled out a name, she who shall not be named, Jen Shaw. She said, this is almost kind of like Jen Shaw. And Meredith Marks and also Heather get very upset. Oh, that's a step too far. That's a step too far. We get a confessional with Heather talking about nobody should even be talking about Jen Shaw. She's in prison where she belongs. Heather been talking a lot of junk about Jen Shaw. And honestly, I know Jen Shaw is in prison still. She committed a terrible crime, y'all. She pleaded guilty to wire fraud that included some type of pyramid scheme that actually targeted the elderly. Yeah, she did that. So she is in prison. Her sentence has been reduced, I think, about 3 times, but she's still going to be in there until November 2026. But they were floating a rumor that the Orange Clown had pardoned her. That's not true. She did not receive a presidential pardon. She is still in prison. But I wouldn't put it past Bravo to bring her back. Teresa Judas went to prison and she came right back. Apollo been on? Yeah, Apollo's been on Bravo shows since he got out of prison. So prison doesn't mean that you can't come back. So Heather, keep talking about Jen Shaw. Because Jen Shaw, they used to be scared of her. So looks like sometime before Thanksgiving next year, she will be out. We will see what Andy and the gang do about this. I wouldn't be shocked to see her back. So Lisa Barlow, again, she's in 5 different lawsuits. Heather tries to play dumb. And Angie gets a confessional. She's wearing this big bow. She said, I don't know why Heather is trying to pretend that she doesn't see it. Stevie Wonder can see it, which is true. If it was in the Tribune, that's the large local paper, then yeah, that is, everybody's already talking about it. So Meredith Marks says, well, borrowing money is a part of business. It's a part of business. And Angie says, yes, also you have to pay it back. So, I mean, I can't argue with any of them. So Brownwyn is holding her square. So Heather is going back and forth with Brownwyn. Brownwyn's not backing down. Mary threw a couple of assists because Lisa does talk about everybody. And then Brownwyn, she has this magenta pink. She's always dressed so elaborately. It's kind of like a big bird looking thing. It's feathers all over the place, but it's pink. It's not yellow. But it looks pretty on her. Brownwyn is really stylish. She says, I admit I shouldn't have tried to impress the group. It turned out to be a lie because I didn't own the necklace. She says some other things where she is giving a mea culpa, which I respect Brownwyn for that. Some of these ladies lie like dogs and they never correct what was said. So Angie's claiming she's not saying anything that she wouldn't say to Lisa's face. Heather doesn't believe it. She's like, you wouldn't say that to her face. You wouldn't say that to her face. And then Angie says, I swear, I'm going to talk to her about what we talked about, that we talked about it. Y'all, Heather's talking about, don't say I was there. So Heather, you scared. You act like you scared of Lisa. I don't think it's because she and Lisa are such good friends. I think Lisa has a reckless mouth, has said any and everything about any and everybody. And actually production was putting in all these clips that I forgot about. She talked crazy about Sean Angie's husband. She was really saying a lot of crazy stuff. So Brittany stands up and announces, I have it, clink, clink, clink. I have an announcement to make. She said, Jared and I were engaged. The group does not respond. They're just looking. Somebody said, is this real? She said, well, 2 weeks later, we've got unengaged. And then we get a confessional with Heather saying, Brittany doesn't know what an announcement is. If something happens and then 2 weeks later, you're unengaged, and it's not really an announcement. So Brittany is playing dumb. Angie wants to break for activities. They get out to it's an RV site. I didn't like the way the ladies were acting like, oh, it looks like a trailer park. It didn't look bad. It didn't look like as luxurious as, some of the Salt Lake City or the Provo, Utah surroundings, but it was an okay place. It's a recreational vehicle car park. So, how fancy was it going to be? So they find out where they're going to eat. They have an outside table set up where they'll eat. It's really beautiful out there. It looked cold. I like what Brownwood had on the most. It was kind of like a quilted, it was red, blue, all these colors. Mary was wearing this big furry hat. She looked so cute. Let me see. Mary was going fly fishing. Hopefully I can pull up the picture of what Mary had on. You can already guess that Mary Cosby is my favorite. She's kind of funny. That's what she was wearing when they went fly fishing, y'all. So, and Meredith had on all white. What I didn't like was they were outside, of course. Mary's like, is there a place where we can walk where it's not muddy? There was not. They broke off into groups. They got into their fly fishing gear. They have the pants that come all the way up here. So you don't get wet because you're walking in the water. And their fly fishing coach, they had 2 fishermen. I don't remember one's name. One's name was Dusty, which stands out because it sounded like he was saying Gusty. Mary kept calling him Gusty. Well, ask Gusty about it. Gusty, ask Gusty. Because Mary will catch a fish, but she wants to throw it back and resuscitate. Dusty says, no, you can't resuscitate. Once the fish is gone, that's it. Mary gets in a confessional talking about fish CPR and all this kind of stuff. Mary is a trip. Then we see the other part of the group, the other ladies that broke off, they are going kayaking. I didn't love this, y'all, because it looked cold out there. The kayaks were on a river that to me was it was doing more than I would have been comfortable with. And I didn't see, production and cameras and all that are out there, but I don't know that I would have done that. But it looked like it was fun for Brownwood and Heather, who have had issues, ended up being in the same canoe. Whitney did that on purpose, or the same kayak. So it looked like fun. They were talking about how beautiful it was out there. Brownwood and Heather were actually happy to be getting along. And then Whitney Rose, she looked like she was in the kayak by herself. I thought that was kind of dangerous. So they get back to the campsite where they are all going to sit down and eat. Angie had so much random stuff, y'all. You know how Chris Tucker on Friday said, why don't we ever have things that go together? Angie had hot dogs. She had veggie burgers. She had forgotten the buns. They had to cook the hot dogs on a stick. She had asparagus. Somebody's like, Angie, how are we going to cook this? She did have a lot of snack stuff like candy. Mary's like, I'm hungry. So Heather's trying to lighten the mood. She starts bringing up this legend of Mary Sorensen or somebody. I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. Something about Sorensen. It is supposed to be this Mormon girl that I guess she was what's called a good time girl. And she escaped from where she was. And now she tried to do kidnap or scare bad Mormon girls, something like that. I didn't get the gist of the whole thing. It's kind of like in certain places you have Bloody Mary. They'll say you stand in front of the mirror and you say something 3 times, kind of like a Candyman type legend thing, which I don't play with too much. Mary didn't either, but Mary was eating that dry bagel. Brown said, I can't believe Mary's eating this dry bagel, but she was hungry. She says, I don't believe in the legend. She need to come out here and cook this food if it's true. It was Molly Sorensen. So that part was pretty funny. They had a scene. It was kind of poignant. It was one of the scenes. I just put it in because I remembered it. I think it was when they were around the table. They were talking about Brittany had thrown out a dig about Whitney Rose's business. And Whitney was very candid. She said, I had to fire 30 people. How do you think that feels? She said, do not talk about my business. I had to fire all these people. Don't drag my business. I had a business that failed. My husband invested and we've lost everything. And I put, this is a note for the other franchises. These things can happen to anybody. And it's not just about, the housewives got to have money. I think the housewives have to be candid and transparent and willing to tell the truth. I mean, if you don't want to show certain aspects of your life, there reaches a point where you could just go ahead and take it to the house and let somebody get in there who will be candid. I don't like fake storylines and all this kind of stuff. I think that's why people like Salt Lake City. That's why I like it, because they're real. They're telling what it is. And we saw Mary and her son and his struggles, what he went through last season. That's important to me to see that. So I love that conversation. I thought that was really good. And then, Whitney said, and I wasn't doing illegal stuff. So that was another dig, y'all, at Jen Shaw, who's not there, and at Lisa, who's also not there. She said, my business just failed, which is true. And then we had a confessional with her. She was saying how it hurts to have people throw something in your face on a girls' trip. Because really, I don't remember how the business thing came up. And sometimes they do that to hurt each other. I don't know if it is production driven or what it is. So Heather Gay, who had a lot of mouth, she kept saying, I'm sorry. She said, I'm sorry, Whitney Rose. I'm sorry. She said, Beauty Lab, I had a lot of failures before Beauty Lab. She said, but you learn in your failures. So I like that she, even though they were having words, they had a heart-to-heart about it. And then Whitney was just saying, she didn't cry, but she was emotional. She says, I have to watch my back every day. Brittany walked around the table to try to hug her, and Whitney kind of backed her up like, I'm not ready for a hug yet. Let's just get through this. So we get a confessional with Brittany talking about, I don't get why Whitney Rose can say whatever she wants to say, and then I don't get to say what I want to say. I just wanted to hug her. Well, that boundaries, Brittany. It's called boundaries. Not everybody wants a hug. So Brittany claims that Meredith would turn on her in a minute. And it's true, but production showed Meredith jumping all over Brittany. But the scene that they showed, remember Brittany trying to record these ladies when they were all in a sprinter together? She got caught, and I thought they were going to fight this lady, but they don't fight. They ripped her to shreds. She almost had a breakdown. She couldn't get herself together. So that was a trip. So the ladies decide they want to walk and have an investigation, of the Molly legend. Now, this is where I'm with Mary and why I identify with her. We get Mary in a confessional saying, I don't want to go out there looking for Molly. I don't care anything about Molly. She said, do these people know about horror movies, scary movies? The black person always dies first. I'm like, yeah, that's right, Mary. That's true. So I didn't like all that playing either. And there was a scene where Brittany, when they first got there, she said, I didn't clear this with the host, but I'm known for recording. So I'm the recording lady. She had gotten all of them these little camcorders. They were cute. And production started using some of the footage, which I did like a lot. They had Heather's cam. Heather was really good about recording everything. I think I saw something that Meredith had done. So that was really thoughtful of Brittany. It was a cute idea to play on kind of what she did, even though at the time it wasn't funny. I thought they were going to fire her over that. I thought they would refuse to film with her. So they are walking out. Again, it's muddy, it's wet. Now it's dark. It's still cold. Meredith is all in white. She had the hat that Mary has. Meredith had a white one like that, and she was all in white. And she got very upset. So we see her getting kind of scared, like, I have no cell phone reception. I just need to go. And that was kind of the end of the episode. Let me see if there's anything that I left out. It was, as I said, it was a jumbo episode. I watched it twice. YouTube had it. They had the whole one. It was showing 54 minutes. And it was also 54 minutes on bravo.com. So I watched it on the app and watched it on YouTube. I guess they're trying to get more eyes on it. If you haven't seen it yet, it is worth watching. You get to meet and see all of the ladies. Lisa Barlow, she missed out not being on this first trip. She was still the topic of conversation, but she wasn't there to defend herself. Heather wasn't really able to defend her that well. I want to see her answer for a lot of these things that's going on. The 5 lawsuits, if that's true, I think it's going to come up. I liked it. I liked the first episode. I probably give it, well, Lisa wasn't there. I'd still give it a 9, even though Lisa wasn't there. So I'll go ahead and give it a 9. Some of these comments, I think is going to cause a feud, like when Brittany doesn't really hold grudges because she could be mad at all of them for the way she feels they treated her. But when Whitney made the comment about her sucking D, I think that'll come back up because Brittany kept asking for an apology right then. And I don't know. Whitney said she wasn't going to apologize. I don't know that she will. So we'll see what's going to happen. I want to know more about these 5 different feuds that are going on. I know Brownwyn and Lisa have something against each other. It also came up. Angie says, well, I'm glad that Brownwin and Heather, that you had a moment on the kayak. She said, because I don't think that you would have been as close or willing to make up with Brownwin if Lisa were here. She said, at least you can be yourself. And Heather's like, I don't like that. What do you mean be myself? You don't think I'm myself when Lisa's here? And Angie was standing on her square. She said, no, I don't think you're yourself. I think that you cater to Lisa and that you would not be willing to talk to or even be friends with Brownwin if Lisa were here. I happen to agree. So we'll see. This is a lot of ladies, like I said. I think the friend of is Brittany. Let me see if I can go back once more, y'all, and show that picture and see. Okay, so we got Meredith Marks on the far right, standing in a lavender. And this is the opposite of the side that I'm on. So next to her is Mary Cosby. Above her with that short little hair like that, that's Brownwin that wears her hair like that. That is Angie with the leg, showing leg in the middle. Lisa Barlow is right behind her. Again, topic of conversation, but she was not there. Right above me on the corner of me wearing her hair blonde is Heather Gay. She's the one that wrote the book Bad Mormon. She used to do a lot of the narrating, but I heard Mary narrating and also Meredith Marks, which I'm here for. And then with the one arm out in the very dark purple, almost navy looking, is Whitney Rose. Whitney Rose is going to have a big season because she's got a lot going on with her business. She was saying her business is being dragged online. She said she didn't do anything illegal. It is just failing, and she's really working hard because Lisa threw a lot of digs last year at the reunion about her jewelry business. So we'll see what's going to happen with that. Even though this was a supersized episode, this is not a supersized review because, like I said, I was going to do it a little bit differently because it's episode 1. Also, it is a supersized episode, so I didn't want to go scene by scene, but wanted to include everything that I felt was pertinent. But Salt Lake City, y'all, it's going to be worth watching this year. So follow along with me. And I think that I like this time. It'll definitely be on Thursdays that I'm doing the review. So either 9:30 or sometimes I do 2:30. So come back to Sandra P's Gen Extra and just follow me with Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Thank you so much for stopping in, and I will see you in the YouTube streets. Leave a comment for me down below. Let me know what you thought about the first episode. I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.